Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about why living alone in the Philippines is not as scary as some people think. A lot of people tell me that moving to the Philippines alone is really scary for them. You know, they're scared of the loneliness. What happens if I get sick? What if there's an emergency? What if I don't make any friends? And what if I never meet that girl of my dreams? A lot of people have many reasons to worry about moving to the Philippines alone, but I've been here over 2 years, almost 3 years now, and I've been alone for a little bit, but I've talked to many guys who are here alone for a long time, some guys who are still alone, and other guys who have found the true love of their life, but after being alone for a while. And a lot of them have told me that living here alone has been the most rewarding decision they've ever made in their life. Let me tell you why, and let's hope that going over a few of these points will show you that it's not as scary as many men think. Many of the fears of living here alone are, what if you have a medical emergency? Now that's probably the biggest fear any man can have coming here to the Philippines. How are you going to handle if something bad happens to you and you need to get it taken care of? One, you don't know the hospital system here. You also don't know how to go about finding a doctor, finding the right place to be taken care of. All of us, none of us want to be taken care of by a witch doctor. We all want to find a competent doctor, a competent hospital to take care of us if we have some of these emergencies. And our relatives, as we talk to our friends and our relatives, they're all going to tell you, you're crazy to be moving to the Philippines by yourself. You have to overcome the loneliness. They're telling you you're going to be alone. There's going to be no one to talk to, maybe no one to have a beer with, but you need to overcome loneliness. Loneliness is one of the biggest concerns I have for expats that come here to the Philippines, something I had to deal with and something all of you will have to deal with at some time when you come here to the Philippines. You need, when you get here, to make friends. You need to find people to talk to, people you can trust, and it takes time to build that trust, but you have to overcome that urge to just sit around and do nothing. Say you get here and you're in Dumaguete. We'll talk about Dumaguete because that's my home. Say you're here in Dumaguete and you find a nice place to live and you settle in. Don't just sit at home every day. Go out and explore. Do many things to keep your mind occupied, keep your body occupied. Get a motorbike. That's probably the biggest thing, is having some transportation. Loneliness sets in when you're limited to where you can go. You might see online that somebody's having a beach party somewhere, or you were invited to a birthday somewhere, but you don't have transportation to get around. Get some transportation. It's going to help with the loneliness. You can always pack up the bike, and I'm always going to call it a motorbike, but pack up your bike and take a ride. Take some water with you, take some snacks with you, get on your motorbike and go for a ride. Enjoy the countryside, maybe up to the mountains or down to a beach, or maybe you want to go 100 kilometers all the way down to Bayawan just to see something different, something that energizes you and keeps you from being bored and lonely. Now, there's nothing wrong with being alone. A lot of people like to be alone. They like to live alone. They like to do things by themselves, go out and meet strangers. They don't need to take company with them to go meet new people. But the fear is being lonely. There's a big difference between being alone and being lonely. And to overcome the loneliness, need to have something to do, something to keep you active. And having transportation to go around, travel to a different island, put that motorbike on a Ro-Ro ferry and go visit another island. Stay active. Go down to the coffee shops. Everybody jokes about the coffee shops, but it's somewhere you can go to meet other expats. You don't have to bring them into your home. You don't have to bring them deep into your life, but you can sit down and talk to them about how bad the Giants are playing, or the Yankees, or basketball, or politics, or whatever you'd like to talk about. There's a lot of guys here who do a lot of reading, and they're into different books, and you can exchange books if you have a small library. Lots of things to do to overcome that loneliness. But loneliness should be a big scary factor for you guys. This is something you should fear. If you're an introvert and you find it hard to make friends, this is something you're going to have to overcome to have a successful life here in the Philippines. Another thing I'm sure your family has told you many things about, it's not safe here, man. People get killed all the time. People get robbed for the smallest things. People are going to break into your house, break into your apartment. They have bars on all the windows. They have high walls around all their houses. Well, that they do. They do have bars on the windows. They have high walls around their houses. But so do those guys in Beverly Hills. You know, they have high walls around their mansions. What is going on here is people are protecting their property. And you should always be aware to protect your property. Crime here that I've seen is a lot of crimes of opportunity. You leave a laptop out. You know, you go to the coffee shop, you leave your laptop out, you go to the bathroom, you forget about it, you walk out to the street, and someone grabs it. You know, you're carrying a backpack, you put it down while you're taking some photos or some selfies, and it's gone. Crimes of opportunity. You don't want to have things laying out unsecured. You know, keep control of your possessions. It's up to you to protect your personal items in a way just like you would riding the subway. You know, you wouldn't get on the subway in New York City and put your backpack with a laptop over here and then get up and walk around. You know, you would keep it with you. You'd keep it tight. And I'm going to give you a little advice on backpacks, guys. When you're traveling in a city you're unfamiliar with, say you go up to the big city of Cebu or Manila, a lot of people put their backpack to the front and then they put their arms around it when they're in heavy traffic. Tell you the story, me and Janet were up in Cebu and we were staying at the Quest and we walked over to Ayala Mall, and if any of you guys have ever done this walk, you go down, after you come out of the hotel, you make a right and there's a 7-Eleven down there with a red light and you cross the crosswalk there. This little girl came begging and we saw her come from her mom. Her mom was over about half a block away, sending the kids to the foreigners to get money. We said no, and we ignored the little girl. But I looked over, and that little girl was up on her tiptoes looking into Janet's backpack to see if there was anything she could snatch. So guys, protect your belongings. You see a lot of fights here in the Philippines lately. It's a lot of foreigner on foreigner, but you don't see a lot of arguments of a foreigner with a Filipino, especially a Filipino man. Usually people ignore you. You know, they won't even want to make eye contact with you. They have nothing to do with you. Now, if you say hello to them as you're walking by, they're going to look up and say hello, but they're usually minding their own business. They're just like you. They're trying to get somewhere and get something done. They might be on their phone. They're watching for things in the sidewalk that could cause them to break an ankle, and they're minding their own business. And that's what you should be doing when you're just walking around. If you see somebody you want to talk to, say hello and see if you get a response. But you know, if you bump into somebody by accident, you know, you're passing on the sidewalk, just say, excuse me, smile, no big deal. Everybody goes about business. Life is good here. It's pretty safe. I'm not talking about going to the far reaches of Mindanao, down into the areas where, you know, there could be some trouble. I'm talking about up here where I live, my area, Dumaguete, Cebu, the island of Cebu, up by Iloilo and Bacolod. All these are safe places. And I don't hear too much about crime against other foreigners from Filipinos, as long as there isn't a love interest type thing involved. But someone just breaking into your house and robbing you, I haven't heard too much about that. The other thing people worry about when they come here, and they're coming here to the Philippines alone, is the day-to-day challenge. You know, when you first get off that boat or the plane and you get to your hotel, and now you're settled into your hotel, you have to walk around the city. Do you know where you're going? How to buy things? The cost of a trike, the cost of a jeepney. How much is the rental of a motorbike? Are you worried about that? You know, are you going to be taken because you're a foreigner? That's always in the back of our mind on the day-to-day challenges, that we're not being a sucker and overpaying. I'm going to tell you guys something. Don't worry about 100 pesos here or there. You know, that's less than $2. If you overpay for a trike ride or you overpay for a cab ride for a little bit, as long as you get to your destination safe and as you start to learn things, To survive here alone, you need good social skills. You don't need great skills. You don't have to be a Don Juan, but you have to have the skills to ask somebody. When you're on a jeepney and you get in the back of the jeepney, just ask somebody, how much? And they'll tell you 10 pesos or 20 pesos, whatever it is. And me, I know the jeepney is 15 pesos or 18. I just pay the 20 or I give them 30. You know, it's just what I do. I give a little extra because I can afford it. There's nothing wrong with being a little generous. And also other challenges are the beggars that are always approaching you. I was sitting up at the coffee shop talking to a couple friends, and a guy came up with some like bongos and was playing the bongos and sort of singing a half-assed Christmas song. Terrible singer, terrible singer. I was the only one with change. I told him, here, this is for you to go away. So we give him 10 pesos to go away, and he was happy. You don't know how much to pay people, how much things cost. These are things you just have to learn in time. And making friends is the best way to learn. When you sit down with other expats, you know, I call it picking their brain, but don't say, hey, I want to pick your brain. Just sit down and talk to them, tell them you're new here, and you're thinking of taking a trike from the coffee shop to the mall. How much is it? And they're going to tell you it's 50 pesos, 100 pesos. They'll start talking and you'll get an idea of the cost. And then when you get on that trike, don't be afraid to ask the driver, from here to the mall, how much? Negotiate. You have good negotiating skills. He might say 200 pesos and you tell him 50. You know, he might say, okay, 50. Or he might say, okay, to 100. Or he might hold firm at 200. But don't be afraid to negotiate little things. When you're at the fruit stand and you want to buy an apple and an orange and none of the prices are marked, have some fun, barter a little bit, negotiate. You know, they tell you, you know, the apple's 40 pesos. Tell them, oh, I give you 35 pesos for the apple. Have some fun with it. Don't be defensive if you think you're paying a little bit more than somebody else, because you can afford more than somebody else. The skin tax is not a friendly thing, and that's something we all have to be aware of. But usually on bigger items, you need to be aware of it. But in the stores, most things have price tags on them. And most stores, there's a discount with the marked item. Not in the grocery store, but in the department store. You know, if you go to Mandawi Foam, all their prices are marked, but they all seem to have a good discount. Don't be afraid to ask for a discount. Enjoy your time here in the Philippines and enjoy bartering a little bit. You know, if it's street food and, you know, they give you, you tell them you want these 6 items and they give it to you and they tell you 220 pesos, you tell them, hey, here's 200 or 250 and keep the change. Whatever works best for you, what makes you feel best in your heart, but have fun with it. Don't be defensive and don't get mad if you think you're being overcharged a little bit. Remember, it's just a buck or two, guy. Now, on the positive note, coming here and living alone is your freedom. This will probably be the first time you feel totally free when you come here to the Philippines. When you get off that plane and you end up in the apartment or condo or house that you're renting, and you're situated and you've been here a month and you know how to get around and you know how to do everything, you're going to feel that freedom, the freedom of one, that you can do whatever you want. Nobody cares. The other freedom you're going to feel, and this will just take a couple months, but once you get there, you're going to feel that financial freedom that you haven't had in decades. I don't care where you come from. If you're from a Western country, you're going to have been paying a high rent or high mortgage. You're going to be paying taxes. You're going to be paying for the trash pickup. You're going to be paying a high price for cable TV, you know, mandatory car insurance. Here, you can have a little scooter, you know, for $1,000 or $2,000, and it's going to last you years. And to get a smog check and to get it registered and to get insurance for the year, think what you pay back home for a used car. Your 1-year registration, car insurance for the whole year, and your smog test. I pay 566 pesos for my smog check. I pay 1,000 pesos is my 1-year registration, and that includes 1 year of insurance. That's it. 1,566 pesos. Less than $30 to register my motorbike, fully insured with smog. And then it's done for the year. The pressure of that monthly car insurance or motorcycle insurance. If you rent, you have to have renter's insurance in many places. If you have a mortgage, of course you're going to have mortgage insurance, and you're going to have homeowner's insurance, and you're going to have flood insurance. Nowadays I hear you might have to have hurricane extra insurance if you're in Florida or Texas or something. The cost nonstop. You get that large water bill, that large sewer bill, you get the big electric bill. So many things, day in and day out, you got another bill, another bill. And it comes to your health insurance. You know, it's mandatory you have some sort of health insurance once you're 65, or you have to pay your Medicare Part B. Well, here in the Philippines, if you live here, that's an option that you have. Do you want to pay it or you don't want to pay it? And the financial freedom to make these choices are all up to you. You can live here on a budget that is equal to the rent you pay in many major cities in the U.S. In 2019, I was paying $1,500 a month to live in a one-bedroom apartment on the south end of the Strip in Las Vegas, Nevada. $1,500, that was my budget here up until 7 months ago when it went up. And it went up because I included a family of 3. And it's up to $2,200 a month on my budget. So the financial freedom that you get here, things are so cheap. When we go grocery shopping and we buy a ton of meat and we buy a lot of stuff and it's 4,000 or 5,000 pesos, that's like an extravagant shopping trip. Where back in the US, I remember paying 50, 60, 100 bucks just to go into Kroger's on my way home from work. Nothing was cheap. And I'm sure things cost so much more. So that financial freedom that you receive here in the Philippines is one of the best things of living alone. And being alone, you can cook what you want, eat when you want, get up when you want. You know, yeah, you could do that in the US too, but could you really? Because you need to go work, or you needed to have that second job, or, you know, the cost of food. It's not the same freedom. The freedom here, especially the financial freedom, it's unbelievable here. The only thing you really need when you get here, you need to have somewhere to live. You got to have money for food, pay your tourist visa, and everything else is extra. And if you're really on a small budget, you can make a go out of it here. But it's that freedom you get if you have a normal budget. If you have $2,000, $3,000 a month, this financial freedom here it just melts all the stress away. And as we take a little deeper dive into the advantages of living alone here in the Philippines, you know, the cost of living here is so cheap, and the peso today was 59 to 1. Your dollar is so strong here. You know, I know the exchange rate fluctuates, but man, it's been stuck at that 57 to 59 range for like a year now, over a year. So I'm not too worried about that. It seems like the dollar's getting stronger. The rest of the world is getting a little bit weaker. So we're going to have an advantage to that. And also, as the dollar is stronger and you get that COA increase once a year, 2%, 3%, whatever it is, if it's anything, it's just gravy on top. It makes living here much, much easier and more reliable. Let's look at doctors. You need to go see a doctor, an office visit, from, I'm going to say, some of the less expensive doctors, which are about 400 pesos a visit. That's what, $7? To an expensive doctor that I have with Janet, and I think she's very expensive and very good. It's 600 pesos, which is about $11. So medical care and seeing a doctor, and for a lot of simple things, is something you can afford out of pocket. You know, if you take a fall and you hurt your ankle, or you scrape up your leg, or you need stitches, all those are simple things that can be taken care of pretty inexpensively. Now, major things, that's a whole different ball game. The cost of living here is probably the #1 reason people want to live here. I know people joke around with it's the girls, but it's really how economical you can live here, how inexpensive you can live here compared to living back home, and the uncertainties of living in your home country. But you can make so many connections here. You know, there's the Sideways. They have a trivia night. There's just different things going on everywhere. A lot of these little clubs or little pubs, they have dart tournaments. You know, all these different things you can do. There's hiking groups that you can join. There's bike clubs where you can ride, you know, the pedal bike, and they go for rides around the island. You can also join travel groups. You know, they get on their scooters and they travel from here to Baiwan or from here to Bais for the day. They take a ride up into the mountains. And going with a group is fun. And it's more fun, and it's also safer, because if you have a flat tire or you have an issue, there's people around who are going to help you out. So make that personal connection with people. Now, let me give you some tips that you're here alone. You need to build that support group. That's very important. As you meet people, exchange their phone numbers, exchange their Facebook, so you have a support group. If you're having a problem or you're just having a bad day, you want someone to talk to. I got a couple friends I always say, hey, can you come out and play? You know, because I want to go talk to somebody. I'm lonely at home, bored. And, you know, they understand that. And it goes the other way also. When they're hanging out at home and they're bored and they want to go down and just chit-chat, do some chismis, talk about other people, whatever we do, talk about politics back home, whatever floats our boat. But having connections with other foreigners, meeting other people, even in different areas, not just where you live. Like where I live, there's a group of us that live close by here, and we get together up in Valencia. But there's also a nice group of people in Darwin, and they don't come here that often. But we know them in Darwin. We'll go visit them. Sometimes they'll come this way. There's a group of expats that hang out like in North Point, and that's another group. Now, they're not close friends, but every once in a while you want to talk to somebody a little different. You take a ride out there, and you look in the door and you see who's hanging out. Build connections. Learn people's names. Make sure you know what's interesting in their life. What do they find interesting? And sometimes the best way to communicate to people is to listen to them. You ask them, how you doing? And then you just sit back and let them talk. And these connections also tell you about new places to rent. If you're still looking for a house or an apartment to rent, as you meet people, they will tell you, hey, my old landlord has a place for rent. And my landlord is great. She was a great landlord. So you'll be able to find a good landlord, find a good place to live, and get a little heads up about the pros and cons and what he paid. So when you go to negotiate the rent, you know what the former tenant paid. That gives you a little heads up on the cost and your negotiating skills. Make those connections. That's very important. Now, something your family's going to tell you, your friends back home, what are you going to do if? What are you going to do if there's a typhoon? What are you going to do if there's a major earthquake? What are you going to do if China invades? What are you going to do? Have some sort of plan on how you're going to get out of the country. Make sure you know where your passport is. Make sure you have some money tucked away. Have an exit plan to get out of the Philippines. Have a plan, even just the city you're in. Maybe you're here in Dumaguete, and my exit plan would be to get to Cebu City. And from Cebu City, then there's a major airport, and then we can move on from there. But have some sort of plan, where you're going to get your money, how you're going to get your money. And just in case, we hope nothing ever happens, but you never know. Something happens every day somewhere in the world, and maybe it'll happen here someday. Let's hope not. But make sure you have some sort of plan in case there's an emergency. Have some phone numbers of family and friends back home that somebody here you can share with. Just tell them where it's at. So if something happens to you, if you end up in the hospital, they can tell the police, hey, in his house, in this cabinet, he has some phone numbers. And they can go get the phone number. Contact the embassy. Let the embassy know you're here if you're American or Brit or whatever country. Let your embassy know you're here, because if you end up in the hospital or in jail or hopefully never the morgue, they will contact the embassy. And then the embassy will have the ability to contact your loved ones. And if you're here alone, you need to have purpose. You need to stay busy. and you need a hobby. You need something you do. Some guys now are talking about fishing. You know, that they're bringing fishing rods with them and they're going down to the sea and fishing right in the ocean to see what they can catch. Someone told me you can catch some groupers out there if you find a rock pile or something. There's just different kinds of fish, something to keep you active. You could take a ride up to Twin Lakes. They have tilapia up there and carp and a few other fish that you can catch. Have some sort of hobby. If it's bike riding, if it's hiking, something to keep you active. For me, I found YouTube. I found YouTube to be a purpose, something to keep me busy, a hobby. You know, Janet and I do this together. I bought some cameras, I have some equipment, and this is what I do to occupy my time and keep me busy. Sometimes too busy, but have some sort of hobby, something of purpose, something you do. Even if it's just a walk around the block or a walk down to your favorite restaurant once a day. Have a purpose of something you're going to do. Have a hobby, something to occupy your time, something to make you wake up in the morning, get out of bed, get dressed, and get out of the house. One of the biggest tips I can give you is to take care of your mental and your physical health. Make that the #1 priority in your life while you're here. Your mental health, keep your mind active, keep it busy. Don't sit there staring at the ceiling saying, what if, what if? Don't worry about things you can't control. You have no control over things. Don't worry about that. You know, you have no control. And your physical health. And I should be talking about that because I'm a mess in my physical health, but get in shape before you come here if you can. And stay on top of your physical health. If it's through diet, through exercise, whatever it is, prioritize your mental health, keep your mind active, and your physical health, keep your body a little bit active. Moving overseas is really nothing to fear. Moving alone is nothing to fear. There was a quote, the only thing to fear is fear itself. So, you know, if you have the money, you have the time, you have the resources, you have the health, and you want to do it, come and do it. Bring a caring heart. Be a good person. And you'll find somebody also in your life. And if you really need somebody, my next video is, you're going to need a maid. Until next time.